So, greetings, everyone. Thank you for joining us this afternoon for this presentation on GIS using StoryMaps. Max Prudhomme, the chair of the Professional Development Committee for SSA, and then Phoenix, the vice chair, is going to be helping us with the monitoring the chat. As you might have noticed, you are automatically muted, but please post your questions in the chat. We will go over those at the end of the presentation. Towards the end of the presentation, we'll post a evaluation form, a Google form, and follow up with a general email for people who did not get a chance to get that form after the session. So now let me introduce Kim Ricker, who is the head of the GIS Data Center at Rice University. And then Ibrahim Kumel, who is a GIS support specialist at the GIS Data Center at Rice University as well. Kim, Ibrahim, it's all yours.
Hi, everyone.
Hi. Okay, so basically, how I've decided to break this down is that I'll start giving an introduction portion, and then Ibrahim will be giving some instruction on how to create an Esri StoryMap. So let me share screen for just a minute. Oh no, the screen. Okay, sure. Okay. So basically what we want to start out with is, what is GIS, right? A lot of you are interested in GIS, but I don't know how much everyone knows about GIS. And so GIS stands for Geographic Information Systems. It's basically a computer-based tool to visualize the world based on spatial location. So spatial location meaning addresses or coordinates. Basically, you'll put individual data layers on top of each other so you can see relationships between things that are not easily understood just by looking at the text. So for instance, looking at the spread of the coronavirus, right? If you have a table or a list of where it started, Wuhan province, et cetera, okay, that's good. But it will be better, right, if you had a chronological interactive map historically, which shows where it started, when it spread, the dates, the number of cases of coronavirus. So in that way, visualization through GIS is a lot easier understood. So what we're going to talk about first of all is Esri StoryMaps. Esri is a very popular GIS company. Rice University has a site license for all Esri software. All the software products differ for what you want to do with them. So first, I'm going to be going over examples of projects using the software ArcGIS Pro. So these examples are examples that were done at Rice University over this past summer. I think Max put it in the comments, the links that I'll be going over them pretty quickly. So you can look at them on your own at the moment now, or you can also look at them after if you want to take a little more time with them. So I'm starting, this is off of our website. It is our GIS project gallery here from Rice. And I'm going to start at the second one as I scroll down. So the first one is an example used by social sciences. And so, this is done by political science. So people in political science are very interested in voter turnout, right? That makes sense. So for this particular project, they're looking at voter turnout based on polling places. In particular interest is that last election, they started using the professional sports stadiums, right, as a polling location, bigger turnout area where people like bigger accommodations, etc. And so this particular project looked at sports stadiums as polling locations because political scientists are really interested in not just mapping the locations of the polling places, but they like to take into account things like voters, their political affiliation, their race, their income, etc. So what they did is they used, I'm going to scroll down, voter records. Oops, it's a weird time thing. Voter records to go ahead and make maps. So this is a density map of Washington, D.C. This is North Carolina. And well, this is also. But what you see here, they have found that blue voters vote at stadiums more frequently than red voters. So you see here, the stadium locations are right here, and they're right here, and the blue voters are migrating to those locations. The red voters out here are using their individual polling places. In addition, they use Network Analyst, it's a feature within GIS, to calculate drive times, like in here, drive times and geodesic distances between voters and each of the stadiums. And they're trying to see if that factors into whether they use the stadium or whether they use their local polling place. Another example that we have seen here at Rice is in the engineering department. Now here is where it gets a little more involved. There's the Golf Scholars Program here, the Golf Impact Project. So this team of students, it was very, very impressive. Undergraduates, they looked at national hazards, at hazardous installations by mapping above ground storage tanks in Galveston County. So what they did is they created maps and other data to make their own reference maps to set the scene, and they created analytical maps to show expected spill volume, at these storage tanks. So examples here of the maps, I can't zoom into them, but if you look at the link that Max sent either in the comments or afterward, you can see, okay, so they mapped these storage tanks over here. Seems pretty easy, huh? But here's the problem. What if you don't know where the storage tanks are located? What if there are no addresses for where the storage tanks are located? So you can't go ahead and map them by addresses. You can't map them by coordinates, because who has a list of coordinates of storage tanks? Maybe someone, but they were unable to find it. So what they did is they looked at aerial imagery or aerial photography, and they went in and drew where the maps were located. So that is pretty awesome. But there are bigger issues to deal with. Not only did they have to show where they were located, they needed to do some analysis to complete, to decide where potential spill volume is. And what the volume is, they needed to calculate the dimension of the tanks. So not only did they need to know where the tanks existed, but they needed to calculate the dimensions. So they used LiDAR data. I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with LiDAR data. That stands for laser imaging detection and ranging. So using this, it's basically where it's satellite imagery, well, satellite remote sensing, where the sensor goes ahead and sends down radar to the earth, and it bounces off it and it returns. So that, using the time guidelines, it decides what the distance is for things. So they use LiDAR data, which is like a point cloud of things, to figure out the distance of the storage tanks, the distance, the height, etc. for the storage tanks. I'm sorry if that wasn't clear. So they did a lot of steps for visualization and analysis. So if you look at these maps, they showed these thematic maps: volume of chemical spills, expected spill volume, etc. So this is pretty in-depth analysis by undergraduates. They're pretty amazing. So this looks really awesome, but I am not quite sure if this is something that you will find useful. I think that Phoenix mentioned that someone at her school in history, it really loves story maps. We found that in the humanities, story maps are closer to what people are looking for, because what if background text is very, very important for setting the scene? So we've decided to show Esri StoryMaps when we're talking about GIS, for archivists. So the company Esri, which I discussed in the beginning, they put out a separate program called StoryMaps. So Ibrahim will be going over that in just a minute. Just some examples of StoryMaps. In the description, I sent out a link to this one. It's called The Reservation. It was made by a history, well, he's women's studies and sexuality in the humanities department, Brian Riedel. He worked with Brian Riedel, also worked with Nora Guthrie, you may know, who is part of the Woodson Research Center here at Rice, and various students. So basically, what this did is they took a lot of print resources and other resources that they found in the Woodson Resource Center in order to make this map, this story describing Houston's red light district from 1908 to 1917. So that is so interesting. I think it's really, really interesting. So as we go down, they have a lot of text here. They use a lot of historical maps. I'm scrolling pretty quickly. I apologize. You can go through and look yourself. They do boundaries, and they also indicate locations. What they did use resources from, they use maps from the 1904 Houston, Texas Street Guide by P. Whitty Survey from established in 1872. They used sandboard maps from 1907. They looked at master's theses and dissertations done at Rice that laid out some of this information. They used 1900 census data. They used a 1908 Houston City Directory. So as you can see, text over here on the right-hand side, and then the data pops up. So you can see all of this geographic information is overlaid over these maps. Okay, as you can see, it's a work in progress, but I think it was very, very well done. So I went through that so quickly. Another example, we can move this. We'll just close this and close this. Is the Red Book of Houston. I don't know if you're familiar with the Red Book. The Red Book of Houston is a compendium of social, professional, religious, educational, and industrial interests of Houston's colored population. So this is extremely interesting. So it's a separate book that goes over that. Seeing the directory of 1950 Black life in a new light. And Nori did this particular one. So what she did is she went in and she sort of digitized these maps. There are very maps overlaying each other. And then she went in and added these particular dots for individuals and buildings and businesses, et cetera, et cetera. So this is also really interesting. So as you can see, a lot has been done and can be done with these Esri story maps. Again, all of these links are included in the chat option, and then also in a PDF, I think that Max or Phoenix will send to you. They will also include information about, I know you're probably wondering, oh, Esri story maps, so exciting. I want to make one. Okay, but you don't have the software. So this is information that I have found for how to get Esri story maps. You can get, I don't know if your institution, they can get a universal site license, an educational site license. You can get one for personal use for $100. You can get a public account just to view, but there's some things you can't do, like you can't embed websites in it, but you could try that out. And then also there are always free trials for 21 days. I think that is it for what I sped through about some examples of how GIS can be used with the software ArcGIS Pro, and then also some really interesting examples in the humanities for what can be done with Esri StoryMaps. So I'm going to stop sharing now and move over to Ibrahim, and he can go ahead and start doing instruction. So I will stop sharing. Okay, over to you, Ibrahim.
Okay, let me start sharing my screen. Yeah. Hello, everyone. My name is Ibrahim Gumal. I'm the GIS support specialist here at the GIS data center in Fundren Library at Rice University. And I would be going through the StoryMap intro with you. So the way I decided, or rather we decided to go about this is to, like Kim has showed you some examples of story maps, and very nice story maps, if you ask me. So what we want to do is I would share with you a story map I created specifically for this particular presentation. And then I would show you how to create a similar story map with all the functionalities that I've used, because I think doing that usually is more important, because many of you probably this is the first time you are getting in touch with story maps. So we would show you the general idea of how to construct a story map, how to use some of those functionalities, and also how to tell your story using story maps. The first thing I would like to do is to share some key important points about how to start a story in the first place and what your story should have. And after that, I'll go straight to the story map I created. So this the steps to making a great story. Some of these points I got it from Esri, and I feel like they're important that I should share with you. So the first step to making a great story is to know your audience, because knowing your audience would be the key determinant factor on what you would add in the story map and the kind of detail that you need to share. Because if your audience is not very advanced, you probably do not need to share some concepts that only people that are advanced in the field would be able to understand. And it's always important to have a very captivating title, and if possible, an interesting picture to go along with it. Because with story maps, a lot of it has to do with not just the text, but the pictures and the maps that go with it. Some people make a mistake when they are making a story map to make it really text heavy, and that is not really what makes people to enjoy that story map. And if you can, you should always have a hero attached to your story, and that hero can be a human or can be an organization or an idea, because usually people love heroes in a story, so they would love to see how that hero ends up at the end of the story. If possible, there are stories that can't have a hero, that's okay. And like every good story, it should have a rhythm, it should have a pattern and theme, so that it doesn't become too disjointed, and it will be more memorable for people to remember. The next thing is create a little world with your story, which is like the third tip I gave. Try as much as you can to give as much information, but don't give too much information, and try to make it as unified and as immersive as possible. Size matters. One size doesn't fit all. What this basically means is, if you're making a story map, you should remember your audience. What are they going to be using to be viewing your story map? Are they going to primarily be using the computer screen, or a tablet, or a mobile phone? So if you know, then you have to be conscious of how you put stuff like maps and pictures, because they look differently using different views. The same thing with scale. You can use big scale and small scale, but you should understand that if you use a big scale, it tells a different story, and vice versa. There is no story maps without maps, and that's why story map allows you to use both static and active maps, which we would use today, and you would see what I mean. Most people usually are in love with using active maps, dynamic maps that you can actually interact with, but sometimes the information that you're trying to convey is better told using static maps. So static maps are as good as active maps sometimes. So it all depends on what you're trying to show. It's good to have a detailed story, but try as much as you can to make it straight to the point. Let it not be too long and people would forget what you're talking about in the first place. So short, sweet, and succinct is the best way to go about it. At the end of a story map, if you can, try to give your audience something to do, like examples and links or references that they can look and learn more. So these are the 9 steps to making a great story. They are more or less a summary, and the most important thing is for us to go through the story map and see how we can apply some of these tips. So next I would try and just go straight to, just bear with me a sec. Yeah. So this is the story map that I created, and the name is Evolution of Built Environment in Houston. And what I try to tell in this story map is try to see how Houston has, or rather the built up environment in and around Houston has evolved over time from 1836 to 2022. If you follow me through, you would see what I was able to do in the story map. But what I would do is I would go through the story map till the end, and then I would go to a fresh page to show you how I was able to create something similar, and then I would show you most of the functionalities that I used. So the first thing is, if you're creating a story map, it should have a navigation tab where somebody can just click and go straight to that section. For this, we're trying to tell the evolution of Houston environment, built-up environment. And as you can see, Houston came into being in 1836 when 2 brothers founded what presently is called Houston after the war that General Sam Houston won. And it was said that they paid $1,040 per acre for about 6,642 acres to get Houston. And these are some of the old maps. You can actually zoom and see some of the plots of what they bought. And there is also this in 1837. You can also zoom a bit and see a rendition of how the area looks like. So a year after founding, Houston became the capital of the Texas Republic from 1837 to 1839. And this is a map showing Houston within Texas. As you can see, this is just a static map. It's just a normal static map, which actually tells us what we want to see. We just want to see where Houston is in Texas, so there is no need to have an active map. That's why this was used. So the next thing is seeing some historical maps that were vintage historical maps. You can also zoom through them. And you can see this map was done in 1891. But like Kim was saying, you can see earlier, you can see the map is on the side and there is text, which I decided to talk about the population of Houston in 1850. And as I'm scrolling, you can see things changing. So now I'm trying to talk about the Port of Houston, which was approved by Congress. And the first ship channel survey was conducted in 1870. This is not an 1870 picture, but it's a picture in the past to show you how the channel and the ports around, or the ports of Houston looks like. The first park in Houston is the Sam Houston Park. And this is a rendition of how it looked like in 1899 when it was opened. This is the old fire station in Houston in the 1800s, the Central Fire Station. This is the Houston Courthouse in 1885. And this is view of Main Street, Houston. And so this is what I did. So this is the old Main Street. And this is a current map of Main Street as it is. And this is an active map that you can touch and you can scroll and you can actually check to see what the tag is. Close this, we keep going. This is how the old Market Square was looking like in the 1800s. And then the hurricane that maybe some of you don't know, but in 1900, there is a very powerful hurricane that hit the Houston and Galveston area, which at that time was claimed to be the US, the biggest in with regard to damage in US history, because it claimed about 6,000 lives. So the next chapter is the built-up evolution from 1900 to the year 2000. So in 1912, Texas Constitution was amended, which allowed cities, big cities, to actually annex areas that are around them. And Houston took advantage of that. As you can see in this map, how the city started. You can see the city demarcation in 1836, in 1903, and then in 1929 it annexed this area, and then it goes like that. 1949, 1969, this area of Clear Lake was annexed around 77. The airport, the Bush Airport area, annexed around 65. As recent as 1996, the Kingwood area was annexed. And this kind of tells you some of the notable things that happened around this time frame. And in 1901, oil was found in Houston. And this was how the first oil rigs were looking. And this was a blessing for Houston, I think, because it ushered in a big economic boom, which in turn spurred high population and high growth of built-up land in and around Houston. Rail transport was quite important back in the days. So Union Station was the biggest station at the time, which was built around 1914, and it became a quite important hub for moving both goods and people around the country. This is an example of railway carts with cotton in Houston. And then this is a newer version of the building that is the Union Rail Station in 1968. As you can see what I'm doing, you can see the text doesn't really affect the pictures or the maps. So this is one of the good features of StoryMap, and it's easy to just keep going and how things blend into each other. And this is a map that shows the built-up land growth in and around Houston from 1945. The red areas are the built-up land up until 1945. And anything you see in yellow was what came after that. So as you can see, most of the built-up land, as expected, came after 1945. And this is a graph that shows the population growth of Houston from 1970 until 2010. So StoryMaps allows you to not just use maps, images, but it allows you to also use graphs and charts to tell your story. Rice University was established in 1912. You can't tell the story, I believe you can't tell the story of Houston without actually telling the story of Rice. And the establishment of Rice actually also brought about a lot of economic development, and it made Houston to be one of the premier destinations for students looking for knowledge. This is Rice University. So the past picture, this is Rice University in 1912, and this is Rice University in 1969. You can see already there are more buildings coming up. The area is evolving, built-up land is growing. And as a result, one can claim of the presence of Rice and other factors. NASA decided to choose the Houston, the city of Houston, as the site of its manned spacecraft center during the Kennedy regime. And this was the center as it's been built in the 60s. And then, as you all know, that led to Houston having the command and control center for the successful landing of the first man on the moon, part of the Apollo 13 mission. So Houston really played a big role. And later, from 1979 all the way to the 2000s, after the Houston Metro was founded, there is a lot of development in terms of metro lines, both light rail and bus lanes and things like that. In particular, the Houston Metro Light Rail was built in 2004, and it has expanded ever since. This is the map, which you can actually click and just see the map of the routes. This is the red line and the green line and the purple line. And then you click and you go back. Houston, we got a problem. So as part of its evolution, Houston didn't just had it all good. It definitely had a problem. And one of the problem is Hurricane Harvey. Hurricane Harvey caused a lot of devastation in Houston, as some of you can remember. This is a picture of downtown Houston, how downtown Houston was looking during the hurricane. As I earlier said, it brought a lot of devastation, and you can see some of the devastation. This is a picture that shows before and after Harvey in one of Houston neighborhoods, which the story maps allows us to do. So this picture behind is the same area. You can see this is how it looked like before Harvey, but if you scroll and then swipe, we can be able to see the extent of the devastation, how most of the houses were flooded, especially around the Houston Racquet Club, close to the bayou. And you can see the whole of this road was flooded. So this is some of the things that the story map can let you do. It's quite an important tool, if you ask me, to use. And then the story map also allows you to embed maps that you did not create. So maps from other websites or databases. So this map was embedded from Social Explorer to show you the population density per square mile, 1980, which is this, and then 2020, which is this. And the map is completely interactive. You can come here and pick a particular information that you want to see, and then you can see it changes, even though the map was not made in story maps, but you can actually interact with it. You can adjust You can remove, you can bring the legend up, you can see, you can auto adjust, and you can decide you don't want to see this. And you can also zoom in into a particular area. And because it's linked, every area you touch is the same thing on the other side. So as you can see, if you see around the university place, how the density has changed. You can see it's the same area here. You can see that it has been, like, you know, with every census tract, when it reaches a certain population, it gets divided. So here you would see that it's not as divided, but in 2020, you can see this shows that there is a much higher density, and it's the same thing across the whole cities. For example, around this Hove line, which is here, you can see that it has a lot more census tract. So this is something it allows you to do. And if you want, you can actually just click the link, click here, and just go directly to the website of where the map is, which is what it would do now. Okay, it's taking time. Yeah, so it allows you to see the embedded map right on the platform of where it was embedded. So back to the story map. So the reason why I used this density map to show the story, and you can actually see it by county if you want, or by state. The reason why I use this, so that if you're going through the story map on your own, especially the 2020 density map, you can be able to make more sense of this map that I added. This map is the map showing the census tracts that are affected by Hurricane Harvey. It's a fully interactive map that was made. You can zoom. You can pick a particular county and see the tract. And you can see most of the counties that were affected are around the south that had and it has a legend, which is this. You can see the count, the sum. So this would be able to tell you, just by looking at it, the areas that were mostly affected by Hurricane Harvey. So that's not the end of Houston's story. Houston is quite resilient and now thriving even after Harvey. The city has evolved and was able to bounce back from some of the disasters that came earlier. And this is a picture of downtown Houston, which quite looks lovely. And this is a picture of the NRG Stadium in 2002, and you can clearly see there is a lot more development over the years, and you can see people, cars parked, you can see more houses, more buildings around here, and also this stadium was not there at that time. So yeah, and to finally show you how much has changed over the years, remember the 1912 image of Rice that I showed you, which is this? So this is how Rice was looking at that time, and then this is Rice today. So you can see the evolution and how Houston has actually in a century, I would say, how it has actually became quite an important and bubbly city over the years. Lastly is a picture of how Sam Houston Park is currently looking. Remember the picture I showed you earlier about when it was created, and you can see now it's looking quite nice. And then this is a final video that I added for Houston, which I would play for a minute or so, just to see Houston at night, which story map also lets you do. because I'm trying to show you all the functionalities of what StoryMap can let you do to tell your story, which includes maps, images, embedded websites, and videos, both static and dynamic or active maps can be used to tell a story. So this is a video that somebody made on YouTube, which I was able to incorporate in my story, which you can also do. So we'll just watch it for a minute, just like 15 seconds, and then we would be done after that. So yeah, so you can see from its most humble of beginnings, this video will be able to show you how much Houston has grown, how much the environment has evolved, how much built up land has grown over the years, and how the city is thriving currently. So yeah, I think we don't have to watch the whole 6 minutes. We can stop it now. So yeah, lastly is just the references, and all the references have hyperlinks, so you can actually go through them and click and see some of the information I used and where I used them if you need more details. So yeah, so that's the end of the story map I created. What I would do right now is to go back to the beginning and show you how I was able to get to where to do what I did. And to do that, the first thing that you need to do is you need to go to storymaps.archgis.com. Like Kim explained, you can get a public account. You can use a public account to access this. It allows you to actually create the story map, but there are things that you cannot do, like embedding websites. But you can actually add some maps and some pictures, I think, which in the beginning, if you don't have a license, it might be able to, it would work for you, or at least you can have some experience doing a bit of story map. So let's go to the story map homepage. Okay, I've seen some comments. Oh, okay, so it's not. Okay, and the first thing you would do, well, these are some of the stories I created, but the first thing you would do when you are at the story maps at GIS.com is to click on new story, and it would ask you if you want to start from scratch, or you want to start with a sidecar or a guided map tour or explore map tour. For this story that I just showed you, I started from scratch, which is what we would do now. And it will launch this, and now it would ask you for the title of your story. So what I did is I did a document which helped me to be able to come up with that story map. And the title of my story map is this. So I'll just copy. We're not going to go through everything, but I'm just going to show you how I did what I did. So I typed my title here, and then for the description, which I have, which is the caption, which is this, I would copy and then I'll put it here. It automatically puts your name that you used to open the account as the person that did the story map. You don't have to put this. And then the next thing I would do is to add a cover image. Then I'll do it clicking this, and this opens, and then I'll browse the file. I would go to my folder where I have everything in, and I think it's here, that image, right? So I have so many images, but yeah, I'm not sure. Maybe here. I can't remember where the image is, but I can use any image. Maybe. Let's see. Bear with me a second. Okay, I remember. I can just use this. Okay, so, but before we go further, you can first pick your design and how your cover should look like. So for me, so you can see if I do this, this is how it would display. If I click this, it would be like this. And if I click this, it would be like that. So I used this option, full. And I clicked on the navigation that I want my chapters to have navigation. And then I click that. And then you can select a theme, a summit. This is a summit theme. You can select ridgeline. So the ways to see the themes usually is when you're using the side by side, you can see how it's changing. The mesa would give you this color. The slate is like this. The title is this. So for the story map I created, I used the obsidian. And then once you do that, let's go full, then you're ready to start. And then it tells you, it asks you to tell your story. So we would go back to that same document, and then we would see what is next. So I said insert timeline. So how do we insert timeline? The way to insert timeline is you click on this dot, and it gives you options of what you want to do. And for me at this stage, I want to add a timeline. So I'll do this, I'll click timeline. The timeline comes in different formats. There is a waterfall, a single side, and a condensed. For this particular part, we would use the waterfall. So you'd say create timeline. And the timeline brings you the option to put date. So the first date, if you remember, is 1836. So we would put 1836 on the date. And the description, which I have here, we'll just copy it. And then go to description, then paste. But because we just pasted it, we didn't type it, so we have to like just correct the writing. And you can then add an image. So we'll browse files. We would go to the folder where the 1836 image is and open it and then add it. And then we have the 1836. The next is 1837, I think. Let's see. Yeah, 1837. We put the date on the next. We put the description. We copy it from the Word file that I've already created. And then we paste. So this is like us going step by step together, trying to recreate that same story map that I just created. So once you're done with this, but okay, there is an image for the 1837 that needs to be here. And I have a folder where I have all the images, where you would have all your images saved. So this is my 18, no, where is it? 18, yeah, that's it, I think. Yeah, this is it. So we go to next, and then I'll check and see what I need to show. Insert Texas map showing Houston image. So we can still go back to the story map to see what we did. So if we forget, so Texas map showing. So to insert a map, in this case, it's just a static map, which is an image. So what I'll do is I'll just insert it as an image. I'll click this dot again, and then go and say insert an image. I'll browse the files, locate where that Texas map is. And where are you? Okay, I think you're here. Okay, I need to find it. Where did I? There are so many images. Okay. Okay, let me find it, sorry. It's in the 1800, okay. Honestly, I can't find it. Maybe I copied the folder and it's somewhere, but anyway, so we can add another map instead. We'll just find that map. Okay, just bring it here. Yeah, open it. Sorry for that. Yeah, so once you have the map, you have an option to choose how you want it to look. Do you want it to look like this? Or do you want it to look like this on the other side? Or do you want it to be full? Or do you want it to be as big as this? So what I did was I chose this option, which is small, which would do what I want. And the next thing, so now you can see how we can use just a static map as an image. Okay, yeah. So you can see how we can do that. So let's open the document to see what is next. Okay, now we are going to insert a sidecar and put a timeline. So a sidecar, it's like the presentation, the PowerPoint-ish presentation part of story map. And to add it, you still click on this. Everything happens with this green button. So you scroll down and then you pick a sidecar. It has 3 options: docked, floating, and slideshow. Today, I would show you, I would use docked and floating, and you would see how it's different from each other. So let's pick docked. And then once you click the sidecar, you can see that it has created a new facility within the story map. And what it's asking you is that you can add whatever you want to add around here, and then you can add text here. So for the text, what I want is I want it to still have that timeline feel within the sidecar. So I'd click timeline, but this time around, I would use single side. And then I would say create timeline, which it did. And for the timeline, what I want it to do is I want an 1850. And then for the description, it's the first census that counted people in Galveston and Houston. I copy, I put in the description. And then I would add the Houston vintage map, which you've seen in the other, which is this for the 1850. I would add it. And then you can see it. And the next time is 1870. But I don't want it to appear here. So I'll delete this. No, cancel, sorry. So I would delete this. Yes, delete and just leave it, because I want another slide. And to get another slide, you can either just duplicate this, or you can add you can add a new slide here with this. And this is a new slide. And this is where I want that same timeline field. And then I'll put the 1817? Yeah, 1870. And put the description. So here I'm trying to show you how to successfully use the sidecar using the docked version. And here I would add the image for the channel, which is this. And then we would open it and we'll add it. And then that's it. So since we only want to put the 1870 timeline, we can delete the second option and then go to the next slide. So I'll just do 3 slides or 4 slides here and then move on to the next option so that we don't take too much time. So the next slide is the 1899 Sam Houston pack. So use the same timeline option because I just like that red dot that kind of shows chronological order of time. That's why I'm using this. If not, I can just type directly on it and it would work. And this is just Sam Houston pack. And then I would add the image of Sam Houston, browse. This is the 1899 Sam Houston pack image, and I would add it. And then you have it. There you go. So I think for the sidecar, it's enough. Maybe we can go to, okay, let's have Main Street, just Main Street, and then we can go to the next part. So I would add another slide. I would add the Main Street image. So just say Main Street. Houston, 1885. And then that's it. So now we're done with the sidecar. So since we don't want to add any more slide, if you keep scrolling down, it gives you the option to just, you can see that the sidecar is attached and you can continue on your story. So now what we're going to do is we're going to add what they call an express map, which is an interactive map. So you click on that same dot and then you click on map and it opens the page, your page where you can, if you have other saved maps, or if you want to go and find maps in the Living Atlas or in your organization, you can do that. But we are not trying to add a custom map. We're trying to add an express map, which is this button here. It's a map that we want to create by ourselves. So we click on the new express map, a new page opens, and we can create the map. There are 2 ways to create this express map. One is if you can just scroll down to the location you're looking for. You know it's easy. You can, maybe I'm trying to find Houston. I can just go to Houston area, and then there you go. And remember, whatever zoom level you stop at and click done, that's the zoom level that would appear on the story map. But since we're trying to find a street, a specific street, I'm trying to put a map of Main Street. So the way to do it, just to show you how the express map works, you can actually find stuff directly by searching for a location. So let's say Main Street, Houston, TX. So it has brought the options, and once we click, it would zoom to the Main Street for us. And it's asking us, okay, do we want to add this information? We would say add to map. Meaning if somebody is scrolling and then he does this, he would see that, okay, this dot is telling them that this is Main Street. You can also add an image if you want of Main Street, of current Main Street or past Main Street. You can add options. You can even change the style, the color of this. So once we are happy that, okay, we're trying to show, because you can see it actually zoomed all the way. We don't have to do that for us. So if we are happy that, okay, we want to show Main Street as it is, it could be a building, it could be somewhere that you would want to show. But the idea is you can actually search for it. And you can also draw, if you like, to indicate stuff. You can draw a line by clicking on this. You can maybe trying to show somebody something. You can do this, saying, okay, Main Street to Oakdale Street. You can do this, and then you can double click and it ends there. So when the person is looking at it, he will be like, okay, you're trying to show him something that happened between Main Street at this point all the way to Oakdale Street. Just remember the zoom level that you decide to leave it, which we would do this, is the zoom level that we are going to use. So once we're done, we click done. And we have an express map attached to our story map. The same thing with everything else. You can decide for it to be small, big, or rather medium, and then it can even take the whole page if you want. So for this, let's say medium, and we can keep going. So this is how you create an express map using the ArcGIS story map platform. You would also later on see how we can then add a custom map that we created using, say, ArcGIS Pro that Kim showed you earlier. I would show you how a map that was done either there or on ArcGIS Online can also be used. So the next thing to do is, so okay, we did the express map, and then now what we want is to add Old Market Square, which is, okay, so just let's see what happens. Okay, so but the Old Market Square is just an image. This time you can put it directly on the story map instead of the sidecar. On my story map, I did put it on the sidecar so that with the map too, so that it would be seamless. But for this, where's the Old Market Square? Yeah. And this time around, I want it to be this. So this is the Old Market Square. And then the next thing that you need to see, the hurricane image, which is also the same. So now let's just move to the chapter 2, which is the built-up evolution from 1900 to 2000. And what we'll do is we can just say text, and we can just paste it. So once we paste it, we rearrange it correctly. So for it to actually be part of the navigation, we need to give it a heading. So instead of paragraph, we want it to be a heading. So once it's a heading, you can see that it's automatically up there. And what this is telling us is that the first heading, we didn't really indicate that it's a heading. So here there is supposed to be a heading, which is this, that we didn't put. And we can just okay, this. It's not letting us to add. Okay, and it's not letting us to add because we have to remove this first. Let's just give it a subheading. and we will go back, and I think it would allow us. Let me just put it here, text. I'll put it here and then drag it back. You can actually do that. Okay, so now I would highlight this and then give it a heading. Then you see it appear here. Brief history of Houston settlements, and then I would come back and then give this heading also, which would be our second. You can see that it appeared here. It appeared here. So now the next thing to do on this chapter is to insert a floating sidecar. And remember, we did a sidecar with docked. So this time around, we're going to add a sidecar. But instead of a docked, we're going to do a floating sidecar. And then we click on floating sidecar, and then we say done. And it's asking us to put text and story. So what do we need to put? Houston annexation map. And then this is the text that we need. So let's add the map first, which is basically an image. And where are you? Annexation. Okay, so now it's this Eastern annexation map. And we would add it. And then we can then add our text on this box here. We can just paste it directly, or we can type it if we are not pasting it. So we would add another slide for the floating sidecar, and then we would add the oil rigs and its text. Oil rigs of 1901. Yeah, this is the image for the oil rigs, and then we would add it. And then we'll put our text on the left. Arrange it properly. And then next, on the sidecar is Union Station. So we would add another slide. Then we would repeat the same thing we just did. So I'm not going to do everything. We'll just do maybe 2 or 3 more. So Union Station. And then we would add the image, the Union Station, and yeah, we would add it. Yeah, and then we would add another slide. And what is it saying? Okay, railway cards, would skip that. So the built-up map, yeah, that is a good one. I think we need to add it. And this is the build-up map. And you can see for simplicity purpose, what I did is that all my pictures that I did research and got, I try to divide them between the years that I'm talking about, because it's easier to do that, to actually know where to locate what I'm looking for. And then that's, we add it. And we can paste it. But I don't like the way it's okay, the way it's looking. I think we need to say it shouldn't crop, because you can see that it's not showing us the southernmost part, because usually by default, when you put an image, most of the time, it just stretch it. Sometimes you have to tell the system that you don't want it to crop it, and you do that by clicking on options and then say fit, do not crop. And then once we do that, you would see how it changes. So yeah, so you see how it changes. So most of the time it's not good to have it just crop your image. So we'll add another slide and see what is happening. So remember the graph I was telling you about? So we would add it also. We would find it. And this is the graph. For the graph, you just add it and then it just add. You just decide also how it looks, which we don't want it to crop. And then, yeah, so it looks better now. And we add our text. And the box, don't forget. Lastly is rice, this I remember. And where is rice? Rice. Well, and for this we can allow it to crop because it doesn't really distort too much, and we can then go back and add the text which says rice was established in 1912. Lastly, in this chapter, we don't have to put the 1969, we can just put the NASA image and we can move on. Because I don't want us to waste too much time so that we don't have time for questions. So this is the NASA 1962 image, and add it. And then we can paste. No, this is not what I want to paste. This is the texts I have for it. And maybe some of you might be wondering if what I did was I had to have this document first. I have to have this document first, and then I have to think of everything, all the text and how to do it. And after I finished making this document, and then I went further to make the story map. No, I actually went the other way. So I actually made the story map in my head, and as I'm going, I decide what goes where, what feature to use. And after I finished doing that, then I went backwards to actually write it down step by step so as for us to go through it, and you can be able to see how I did what I did. So there is no reason why you would say you need to really sit down with a document, write everything down, and know all the functionalities that you'd want to use before you actually start the story map. That's really difficult to do. It's always better when you are experimenting with the images and with the functions, and as the story is going before you publish, you can always change stuff. So next, we would skip this NASA moon landing, which you've already seen. So the next thing it's telling me is to insert a timeline. Which we've done initially, but yeah, we would maybe do it again. So the timeline is usually here. And we would use a single timeline, would create it. And this is 1979, if I remember correctly. No, it's not 17. 1979, and this is what, let's see. So it's 1979 and 2004. And the description, Houston Metro was founded. And the description here is Houston Metro Rail was built. And what I did, I added the map within this instead of to have it here. so that I can use the light rail picture that I have, which I would show you here, which is okay, because it's in 2004, you can see it's not here. So it's in the 2000 to 2022 folder, which is here. And then I added it. It became the background information. And because I still want people to see, as they are looking at this, I want them to see the map of the routes. So that's the importance of this timeline. It allows you to actually add an image within the text area itself. So which is what I did. I added this. And then now you have the map. No, but it didn't even come out the way I wanted it to come out. No. So what I did, I think, was, oh, it deleted. What I did was I just added the image directly on it instead of within the timeline, so that it will be big enough for everybody to see. Yes, this is what I did. Yeah. And event. So I would just add the 2004. And I would say Houston lights. Built. Was built. Okay. And yeah, so now we are done with that. So the last chapter, we are now in the last chapter, which is which I titled Houston, we got a problem. And we would paste the title of the chapter. And don't forget, because we know it's a brand new section, we need to highlight it and tell StoryMap that it's a heading so that we can have it right here on top. And the first thing that we have is the flooded image. So we would find the flooded image, which is this. We would add it. I don't want it to look small. I want it to take the whole page. So I would pick this option because I want it to be visible by everyone. And then the next is this text, which I'll just copy together and then just text and paste. And now we are going to use the swiper. So the tool that, remember this, the tool that I used to show you the area, a neighborhood in Houston where it says before and after. So this is how to use it. And the tool is called Swiper. You click on it, it automatically opens two screens for you where you can either put an image, a map, or an express map. And if you're putting an image, try as much as you can to check if the images are the same size or close enough, and they represent a similar area. So for this, I would click on the image and then I would browse. And then this is my image for before Harvey. I would click on it and open. And you can see now it's just one image. So I would go back and then I would click an image. I would do the same thing. I have a Harvey after Harvey image. Then I would open, I would add. But this size is not good enough for me. So I would do the medium, which you can see, this is how we got to what I showed you earlier in the beginning. So this is how you use, and you can do this with a map, and you can also do it with an express map, where you zoom into a particular location on one side, and on the other side too, you do the same thing, so that you show somebody something that is happening, maybe simultaneously in a particular location. The next thing, it's we would insert a sidecar, and we would use the dock this time around. So I will be done in like maybe 10 minutes. We're at the end, don't worry. And what we would do now is to show you how to embed a map. So the map that I used to show the population density of Houston, this is the link. I already have it, but if I don't have it here, remember we opened it earlier, so I can just come here and then just copy this, copy the link, and then go back and say add. I would say embed, not map, not image. I would say embed, and it would bring this link option, which I would then paste my link, and then I would add. So it's taking a bit of time. Yeah, so now we have that map, and we can then put our text, which we have, which just basically explains that this is showing Social Explorer embedded map showing the population density per square mile. In Houston. 1980 to 2020. And remember, I told you it's you can interact with the map. You can decide it's click or hover. Right on the story map. You can do whatever you want to do with it, as if you're on the website of Social Explorer. So we would add the last that, and then insert custom hurricane. Okay. So now I would show you, initially we did express map. Now I would show you a map that was created in ArcGIS online, and then we can add it. So I would click insert map. Remember when we were creating the express map, this is what we did. I click on express map, but this time around, I might have favorite maps, or I might have generated my own maps. So this map was created by somebody here at Rice, which I have in my account, and then I decided to use it. So what you just need to do is whichever map you create and save on your account, it would come to your maps page on StoryMap, and you can use it. And I might decide to use the Living Atlas and pick whatever map I feel like I would want to use. I can also add that. You can see there is a lot of options, but for me, based on the story I'm telling, I want to show the map of census tracts affected by Harvey. Then I'll click on it. And even though somebody created it, it would still give me the chance to actually decide on the zoom that I want the map to show. So maybe let's say I want it to be like this. Once I'm happy with this zoom, or if I wanted to zoom out or zoom in, when I'm happy with it, then I'll just say place map. And now it has actually placed the map at that zoom level. And I can add my text, which is basically saying census tract in Houston affected by Hurricane Harvey. And that's it. So the last bit is the resilient and thriving part. And then as usual, we'll do the same thing, and then we'll tell it that this is, don't forget that this is a heading. And then we have our last chapter, and we would insert an image. We would browse. Remember that downtown image? We would add it, but I want it to be bigger. Yeah. And then next thing, so the next thing is just to, I see we are almost out of time, I mean. Okay, I would add the gallery. So you can have side-by-side images and they don't have to be swipes. So you do that by doing the image gallery, which you can select. So I would show you what I did. This is the first one. And then you can hold on control, click on the second one. You can decide to pick so many different ones and they would all appear. So, but for me, I just want to do a side-by-side. And then I want this to be the first on this side. I can drag it. And then I would create the gallery. And this is how I got to the NRG image that shows the area around 2002 and quite recently. And then the last thing is to add the video. I would skip the rise part, but would add a video. And to add a video, you click on the same thing option that let's see, nice video. Okay, video. Instead of upload, if you have the video on your system, you can just upload it. But if you want to share a video from somewhere, you give it the link. And this is the link of the video that I shared. And then copy, paste the link, and then you see add. And as usual, like everything else, you can decide the size of how you want it to look. Lastly, it's just text that says references. References. And for the references, we can just, yeah, so you can just write your references. Or we can just copy these references as they are. Yeah, so this the references. If you want, you can make this to be hyperlinked so that it can be clicked. If you don't want it to be hyperlinked, it's fine. You can leave it, and people have to like copy and paste to search. So now that we are done with making the story map, the next thing is to have it previewed. And to preview it, we just click here, and we would see how it would appear. The only difference is that you would see this draft that it shows. And as we are going, remember the sections. So if we click on this, it just takes us straight to that particular chapter. The same thing if we click on this, it takes us to the last part. So that was the importance of ticking that navigation tab in the beginning where you choose the design. And if we do this, it would take us. So, but let's go back to the beginning. And once we are happy with the preview, we can close it. And it would bring us back to where we are creating the story map, and then we can say publish. So once we click publish, it gives us 3 options. So it would ask us the sharing level. You can share it just by yourself, to your organization, or to everyone. So if you share it to everyone, it means whoever you give the link can be able to see it, to see the story map, whether he has an ArcGIS public account or not. It's like every other blog post that you can check online. So, but if you want it to be shared with people in your organization, then you just click on organization, and you can later republish if you're not happy, if maybe you want it to be seen by public for a week or two. After the week or two, you can come back, edit, and republish to your organization, or just make it private. So for this story that we just created, let's say public, and then I would then publish it, click publish, and then we wait. And then it tells us that we have published the story. So now that we've published it, let's see what we did together. So this is the published story, the actual one that we just did. And let's see how well we did together, both of us, if we were able to do something quite similar to what I showed you earlier. So this is it. This is Houston. Remember those timelines that we were putting? Remember the images that we were using? You can see how it's going. Remember Main Street in 1885? Remember the map that we created that shows Main Street? And it's fully interactive. You can actually zoom. You see the line. You can zoom and you can pan. You can zoom out. Yeah, this is that old market square picture. And this is chapter 2, showing the annexed areas, the oil rigs, and you can see how the text is going. The rail station, the built-up map, the graph showing the growth, Rice University, when it was created, NASA. Yeah, and remember when I was talking about the rail and how we did this, and I told you I would like it to be part of this, so that as you are looking at the picture for the light rail, you can still see this part, which I added as part of the timeline. And then Houston, we got a problem with the flooding. And then this is the swiper tool that we used. And then it jumps from the swiper tool to the map that we embedded, which shows the population density per square mile in Houston. And then the census tract areas affected by Harvey. The last chapter showing downtown Houston, the gallery, and the video, and then the references. So this is what we just created, which is quite very similar to what I just showed you in the beginning. The only thing is that this has a bit more pictures, and which we don't have time to do everything. But yeah, so this is how to create a story map. I hope you were able to learn a bit of story map, and or at least if it has triggered your interest in the kind of story that you'll be able to tell using story map. So at this point, I would stop sharing my screen, and I would hand over to the next person. I think it's Phoenix or somebody, or Max.
Well, thank you, Ibrahim. And thank you, Kim. So I think we could we could go on with the questions now, I think, right? I will post the link that I was given to show what your work here, to reflect what you did. I was supposed to send that after the presentation, but it's also available in the PDF that Phoenix forwarded.
Fantastic. Hello, everyone. My name is Phoenix Smithy. I am the vice chair of I almost said Presidential Development Committee, Professional Development Committee. Thank you so much to our presenters for that absolutely wonderful presentation. That was so fascinating. Thank you. And thank you to all of our participants for spending your afternoon with us. We are thrilled to have you. So we have about 20 minutes for questions. So if you would go ahead and drop your question in the chat, I will go ahead and turn off my camera and read them in the order they came in, and then of course, hand it off to the presenters for the answers. Okay, it looks like our first question is, thank you for the tutorial. I do have one question. Do you have to continue the ArcGIS account in order to keep the story map live/working?
No, you do not. Once you post it, it will live there. I can't say for how long, as the software is always changing. I don't know if it will come to the point where the software version is such that the version you created no longer works, or they decide to take story maps off the market. But as far as I know, once you post it, it lives there forever.
Fantastic, thank you. How can you overlay different maps? Is that the swipe function, or is there another way?
So you can use the swipe function to actually overlay different maps, but there is a clever way of also doing it. If you're using the sidecar, you can actually have like 2-3 different maps attached per slide, and you then use different either zooms or maybe different information. So once somebody is scrolling, then one map shows. Once they scroll again, then another screen changes, and then a different version of that map comes on. So that's you can do it for 10 maps if you like, but it has to be one map per slide. But if you want it to be on one screen, then it has to be with the swiper.
Thank you. If I create a map in Adobe Illustrator, would I be able to import the map in the system?
Yes, so as long as it's a JPEG or a PNG or a TIFF, you can be able to do that. But I don't know if Adobe has a format that is unique to Adobe. But I think even if it is a PDF, I'm not sure. As long as it's an image, PNG, TIFF, and JPEG, I think you can bring it in. As for an Adobe interactive map, I'm not really sure.
Thank you. Did you need to get permission from the creator to use the pics and videos?
As long as you reference it, mostly, and as long as it's online, no.
Thank you. Is it recommended to cite image sources within the story map? Second part, does story map have a preferred citation format?
So I would start with the second part first. I don't know if it actually has a preferred citation format. Some people cite image to image. For me, I find that quite tedious, to be honest, to do that. But if you have time in your hand, you can do it. And sometimes it kind of puts off maybe the story. So what I do is I usually give a reference to where I got all the images. And I feel like that suffices. But maybe some people might want to do it differently, possibly.
Thank you. How do you create data points on an image map?
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, Kim, go ahead.
I was going to say that was something that you would need either Adobe Illustrator or CAD, or I would say ArcGIS Pro, ArcGIS Online, or some other system where you can bring in an image and then use GIS to plot plot dots via coordinates, via address, or just draw it on. So there are a variety of ways.
Fantastic. So we have about 15 more minutes. We are happy to take questions. I'll give you a little minute to percolate, see what comes to you, digest everything.
I'm so excited that so many of you were interested in GIS and story maps. We have on the PDF I included our email addresses and our phone numbers if you have any follow-up questions that you can't answer, that you don't ask during this last part. So
Yeah, the turnout is quite impressive.
Okay. If you make something with a free account, can you use as a standalone? I know you can't embed.
you mean with the public Esri account? If you make it a public Esri account, it will be listed on the Esri site, right, Abraham?
Yes.
Yes, and it looks like we are talking about that public account.
Yeah, it will be listed on the Esri site. And so then you can send anyone the link for them to look at it on the Esri site.
Yeah.
And it looks like Max has posted our presenter's contact information in the chat as well. We also would love your feedback. So there's a link right under that contact information for our evaluation form. So please feel free to fill that out at your earliest convenience. We really, really appreciate your thoughts.
Yeah, to help us guide in our our program development series. We appreciate it.
All right, any last minute questions? Well, if there's no little pieces of business, anything else any of our presenters would like to say, anything Max would like to say, I think we can start wrapping it up. Thank you all so much for coming.
Yes, thank you very much, Kim, Ibrahim. Much appreciated what you did. It was great. Thank you, Phoenix, and thank you everyone.
Thank you for inviting us, and thank you everybody for attending. It's our pleasure.